Hello, and welcome back to a new art video. I am Naomi, and my channel is Naomi's Ellipses. I know today the title of the video is a little bit weird. What does it mean, a world without floor? Well, I had this idea while I was casually scrolling through TikToks, and I found this video.
If you were born and raised on Mars, your body would look very different.
It talked about how you would look like if you were living in different planets. But the one that really inspired this video is Jupiter.
Okay, here's the thing about Jupiter. It's not made to live on. First, it doesn't even have a surface for you to walk on. You'd be gliding through clouds of hydrogen and helium. You'd lose bone density, but your muscles would be strong. And you'd have to be short and compact to withstand the intense pressure of the gas giant. Your dark skin would give you some level of protection against Jupiter's radiation, and you'd be full of gas. Yeah, in order to be able to fly in Jupiter's thick atmosphere, your body would need to have lighter than air gases. Your biggest problem would be breathing. You could adapt to the extreme radiation levels and high atmospheric pressure, but Jupiter has zero oxygen in its atmosphere, so unless you could evolve to breathe hydrogen or helium, you wouldn't survive long on this planet.
I found it very interesting, a world where you would need to walk. You would be more or less floating or swimming through your own atmosphere. So for the sake of this video, our planet is going to have gravity, but the atmosphere is so thick that you can fly or float. Other than this, everything is the same as here on Earth. The temperature is the same and you don't need any help to breathe, and you have the regular food and plants. With that in mind, I went on my way and started to do some research. At first I thought, what kind of buildings are built in a non-gravity environment? And of course, the first thing that came in mind was the International Space Station. So I focused my search on the International Space Station. I learned many different things. First, it was built in many different compartments. Also, once you're in there, because there is no gravity, you have no points of reference. No up, no down, no left, no right. But this was not very useful, as on our planet we do have gravity, so there will be some point of reference. But another interesting thing I've learned is that a lot of the machines are not firmly attached to the space station. The bike they use to exercise is only attached at few key points. And this is not to make the entire space station vibrate when they exercise, because with no gravity, just one tiny push makes anything vibrate. Or at least, this is how I understood it. And this is something I can keep in mind when we build our buildings. After I searched the space station, I thought that actually boats might be a bit more useful in our situation. As remember, there is some type of gravity. It's just that the atmosphere is a bit more dense, so the buildings would be a little bit more like a boat than a space station. So I looked at many different type of boats. But I'm gonna be honest, the inside of the boat is not very useful because it is kind of a regular house, just in extremely smaller. So with this, my search were more or less done. I kept in mind that for the inside of the building, it needs to be closer to the International Space Station, but for the outside, it would look a little bit more like a boat. To create my mood board, I searched up pictures of the International Space Stations, boats, and weirdly, playgrounds. I remember seeing on social media entirely woven playroom, and for some reason I thought it would be useful later on. While I was looking for different pictures, I found this shape. I don't know if it's possible to fall in love with a shape, but I definitely did. Once I gathered all my pictures, I just threw them on the mood board. Once all the pictures were on the mood board, I started to make a color palette for the boats, for the playground, and for the International Space Station. Within those color palettes, I picked the colors that were similar from palette to palette. Then it was time to look for similar shapes that I could see throughout the different pictures. Once my mood board was done, I started sketching. I'm gonna be honest, I had no idea what I would draw when I started this project, but it is at this stage in the process that my idea started to solidify. I started to sketch the building from outside, and let me tell you, the first one I drew was pretty much the one I went for. Even though I tried to come up with different ideas, I really just kept the first one. Once I knew how the building would look from outside, it was time to sketch the inside of the building. But here again, I had one picture in my mind, and turns out I kept this one. I wanted this painting to look like dramatic brutalist photos. I tried to play it with different angles, but nope, my first idea was the best. Okay, let's start painting. As usual, I started with the perspectives. I feel like I'm saying this for each and every video, but this time it is 100% true. It was the trickiest perspective I've ever drawn. Because each non-floor were a section of a cone, it made it very difficult to draw them in non-perspective. These perspectives were looking more like a game of math than really painting. I have a 2-hour and 10-minute long clip of me trying to figure it out, but I made it. Once the difficult part was out of the way, it was just coloring within the lines. The other interesting part of this painting was the lighting, because in those architectural brutalist photos, I feel like lighting is dramatic and very important for the composition, and I had a lot of fun trying to figure it out. Once I was done with the inside, I drew a quick painting of the entire city. It is not as high quality as the inside, and I don't have much footage of it, but while we look at it, let's talk a little bit about this world. Thinking of a world without floor was pretty challenging. This is how I imagined the city to work. Each building would be linked by a tunnel. People would fly within the tunnel to go from building to buildings. At first I was like, why not having just the building not linked at all? But that is where the challenge come in. You don't really need a path, so people can fly in each and every direction, thus making the city a little bit dangerous, because if everybody flies in every direction, collision might very easily happen. Also, I imagine that the building will need to be linked from one another. Otherwise, what would happen if one heavier building would go faster than a lighter one, or vice versa? The city would change every day, and it would be very inconvenient, I think. That is why I use tunnel to link everything. When it comes to the inside, similar issues happened. Let's say you have an apartment that doesn't require floor, you still need some kind of privacy. But again, keeping in mind that nothing can really be fixed, otherwise everything vibrates, I thought of using the woven playground idea. So it's not really floors, but more dividers to give you privacy. With that being said, I decided that I would draw the inside of a mall. It is still quite open, but you do need some type of dividing to really understand how the mall works. I thought it would be perfect. Okay, it is time to look at the final pieces. The outside of the city and the inside of the mall. Let's go.